let's remember the history behind this disgraceful performance of Trump and J.D. Vance when they met with Zelensky in the White House. It actually goes back to this, that for many, many years, Trump was a money launderer for the Russian oligarchs. And this led to this widespread web of connections between Trump and Putin. That is part of the reason why Trump has always favored Putin. The other part of the reason, of course, is the political affinity that they feel. Trump's racist supporters at America First made their racism and their sympathies clear.
Find our secret sauce here, it's these young white men.
Yeah!
Can we give a round of applause for Russia? Yes.
We should never forget the Sieg Heil salute of Trump's co-president Elon Musk. Meanwhile, encouraged by Putin, a Nazi movement is gathering strength in Russia.
Russia's Unity Day was introduced by President Putin as a national holiday 8 years ago. But Monday's march in Moscow once again was hijacked by the extreme right. It's supposed to mark...
Trump's having blamed Ukraine for having started the war made international news.
Trump blames Ukraine for the Russia-Ukraine war. He says that Ukraine should have never started the war with Russia. Donald Trump pushed back against Ukraine's objections to being excluded from talks between the US and Russia in Riyadh aimed at ending the war in eastern Ukraine. Trump also seemed to suggest that Ukraine was to be blamed for a war that began only after Russia invaded the country. Let's listen in to Donald Trump's reaction.
But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
J.D. Vance made his point of view clear.
Care what happens to Ukraine one way or another. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
This is why Trump spouts nonsense such as this.
Of any deal on Ukraine.
If he not what?
He did not stick to the terms of any deal on Ukraine.
I've known him for a long time now, and I think he will. I don't believe he's going to violate his word.
As here are the facts on Putin and agreements. In 1996, Russia had a peace agreement with Chechnya. 3 years later, Putin, Prime Minister of Russia, ordered Russian troops to invade in violation of that deal. Or take Georgia. There was a ceasefire between Georgia and Russia throughout the 1990s. Putin is the one who broke that ceasefire, sending his troops in to invade Georgia in 2008. And now Trump trusts Putin to keep his word, to just take, I guess, some parts of eastern Ukraine, which are burnt to the ground and littered with mines, and just walk away and never touch Ukraine again. He trusts him? When Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014, seized Crimea, agreed to the Minsk agreements, and then went ahead and continued to fight Ukraine in the Donbass for years. And then that full-scale invasion in 2022, when Putin said this.
The Soviet government created Soviet Ukraine. This is well known to everyone. Until then, there was never any Ukraine in the history of humanity.
Zelensky had to remind Trump and Vance about some of this history.
2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
It was at this point that J.D. Vance ambushed Zelensky and sabotaged any discussion. And of course, Vance is lying when he says he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine. He does care. He wants a Russian victory.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count one.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
Like the thug, bully, and Putin supporter that he is, Trump joins in.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting?
Meanwhile, Trump talks about peace, peace, peace in Ukraine. This is the sort of peace that Trump is talking about. The peace of the graveyard in the town of Bucha, where Russian troops slaughtered every man, woman, and child that they could get a hold of. The peace of Mariupol, which Russia left looking virtually indistinguishable from how Israel has left Gaza City. To repeat, Trump is talking about the peace of the graveyard. Meanwhile, Trump's co-president, hatchet man Elon Musk, rampages throughout the country, reveling in, celebrating his destruction of the lives of tens of thousands of government workers. The Trump-Musk co-presidency, with J.D. Vance playing a wingman, are collaborating in destroying U.S. society and destroying Ukraine. This is not going to end well if they are not stopped.